Oh, I happen to be just reading this section of Chaitanya Charitamrita when dear Govinda called me. Circumstantial.
Yeah, no.
But there are no coincidences. Every atom is under the control of the Supreme Lord. And this chapter 6 is called The Liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. We both said this Prabhupada mantra, Nama Om, so many thousands of times in our lives. Can you estimate? 1 million?
At least.
653,000 times?
How many years? Sure. Times, at least 3 times a day.
So it's an address respectful to Prabhupada. Nama Om, we offer our obeisances to Prabhupada. And why? Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane. You are the disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the greatest Vaishnava scholar of Indian history. Gauravani Pracharane, and you are preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya. What is that? Especially that you're preaching Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya. You are eradicating the disease upon the world of the Mayavad philosophy, that we are all God, or that there is no God, or that everything is formless, identity, personal ego is false. There are so many concoctions in that philosophy that Srila Prabhupada was empowered by Lord Chaitanya to go all over the world and present this devotional alternative to the philosophy that we are God, or we are all God, or there is no God, or that everything is one, and we've forgotten that we are God, or that I am you as you are he is she, and we are all together. Any musicians here? Well, that's all.
I think so.
I'm familiar with that show.
Okay.
You want to sing it for us?
Here says he's familiar with that shloka. John Lennon did concoct his own shloka. He heard from Prabhupada and he did render service to Prabhupada and the devotees, but he couldn't stick with it. There wasn't the standard sadhana of chanting and hearing every day that keeps us under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada. If we want to neglect his instructions, we can go away. We can go down to hell if we like. There was, we were in California, our first 20 years of devotional service. And there was one very big devotee who was managing the whole movement. And later on, we found out that he wasn't doing the sadhana. He wasn't doing the read. He became a Buddhist and he now preaches that Vaishnavism is simply sentiment. It's concoction. And he was the most trusted devotee by Srila Prabhupada. So regularly chant that prayer to Prabhupada and let us stay in the line of Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya. Don't let the infection that I am the creator, I am the enjoyer, which is merely the dictation of false ego. Don't let that affect us. So we have this story, or these pastimes, called The Liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, is when Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas. He'd taken that severe commitment. I will be totally absorbed in Krishna, 24 hours, and I will preach it. And on the order of his mother, Mother Sachi, from where? Where was Sachi? Navadvip. She said, Lord Chaitanya said, what is your instruction, mother? I will do whatever you say. And she said, go to Jagannath Puri. That way I can occasionally go there and see you, or you can occasionally come here to Mayapur and see me. And she's his eternal servant and didn't want to be separated from God, but didn't want to stop Lord Chaitanya from doing his sadhana, his vow of strict adherence to Vaishnavism and preaching the personalist philosophy.
And we can note it's not strict adherence to the sannyas rules and regulations to after you take sannyas to consult or take advice from your mother. So he's kind of strict and also crossing the boundaries out of affection simultaneously.
Very nice. I stand corrected.
I was just adding that, correct?
No, the Bhakti movement is a movement of love for God. The Mayavad philosophy is that there is no God to love. There's no reciprocation between him and you. That's not Vaishnavism. It's a self-centered concoction. So Lord Chaitanya is approached by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was a leader of the Mayavad sannyasis and bhaktas in Jagannath Puri. They were all totally fallen because they would go and offer obeisances to Lord Jagannath, and they were living in a holy place, right? But still, he said, Chaitanya, you are a young man. He was 24 when he took sannyas. How will you stick to your strict vow unless you continually hear Vedanta philosophy from me? So Lord Chaitanya says, Maharaj, I will follow your order. So you know the story, for 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the leader of the sannyasis in Jagannath Puri, instructed Vedanta philosophy to Mahaprabhu, according to the Sharirak Vasya, the interpretation of Shankaracharya. And Lord Chaitanya was just silent. And after 7 days, Sarvabhauma said, Chaitanya, I understand you're interested because you've been sitting listening for 7 days, but you haven't said a word, so I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. And what was his reply?
Well, he's saying, I understand Vedanta very well, but nothing you're saying makes sense.
Direct, like Srila Prabhupada was, you know. He was so direct sometimes. He was kind and supportive of our individuality, but he never compromised on the philosophy.
It's mentioned in the pastime you're describing, and it's happened to be around that, my personal reading, somehow or other. And so there's a letter from Srila Prabhupada to Balavanta Prabhu from December 1972. And Balavanta at that time was under Prabhupada's guidance. He was involved in the In God We Trust party. I think running for mayor of Atlanta or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And so Srila Prabhupada in his letter to Balavanta, December 1972, he specifically references this pastime and precisely kind of how Nalinikanta Prabhu described it. Prabhupada writes to Balavanta, he specifically says, if we want to attract intelligent people to the Krishna consciousness movement, and Prabhupada specifically uses the adjective intelligent, if we want to attract intelligent people to the Krishna consciousness movement, we need to be really good listeners. Really good listeners. And he cites, he writes to Balavanta, like there's the example, of Lord Chaitanya. He listened for days, even though Sarvabhauma, he was speaking Mayavad nonsense. He was speaking Mayavad nonsense, but Lord Chaitanya, he listened, and he listened, not that he pretended to accept, but he listened. He was tolerating the diverse point of view. And then on that basis, then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was open to receive heavy comments at one point in the conversation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after exposing the fallacies and incompleteness, he says, and you're not going to be able to understand this because you're impudent and you're attached to your point of view. So Prabhupada cites this conversation about how important it is to listen to others' point of view and understand. There's a comment saying people don't care what you know till they know that you care. And Prabhupada's making the point, a great way to show that we care, listen to their points of view. And then they'll be open to hear from us, just like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's liberation pastime. Hare Krishna.
So Lord Chaitanya starts giving him quotes from the Puranas, from the Vedas, from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the Upanishads. The Mayavadis, they think they have a grip on the Upanishads, and they say that the Upanishads describe God as impersonal. Nothing could be further from the truth. So Lord Chaitanya starts quoting all of these Vedic scriptures as to the personality of Godhead being the summum bonum, the source of everything. And he says to him, are you describing as formless that supreme personality of Godhead, whose transcendental form is complete with 6 transcendental opulences? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has 3 primary potencies. Are you trying to ascertain that he has no potencies? And then he quotes Vishnu's Trini Paraprokta, the Ketragya Shakti is the living entity, the Supreme Personality is Satchidananda Vigraha, which is stated by the wisest person in the whole universe, Lord Brahma, the father of all of us. So it's a nice rebuttal, strongly stated, with Vedic references, not the emotional labyrinth. Is there such a word?
Labyrinth with mental word jugglery.
Which some religious, practices have. They get emotional, but Krishna consciousness is based on fact, scriptural reference, authoritative references.
Logic and rationality.
So much background for it. So one time I was, there's a big fight basically in summation between the Mayavad impersonalists who follow the modern interpretation of Shankaracharya and the Vaishnavas. They're always fighting with each other. One time in Los Angeles, Prabhupada would come there often. It was like the world center of ISKCON back in the 70s. And I was a temple commander. So I used to sneak down in the morning and get in the car and go out on the morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. One GBC one day came up to me and said, "What are you doing here?" It's like, I can't not be with Prabhupada. You can't, you can't do that. One time we were, Ratna and I were flying to Vrindavan, and we had a connection through Paris, and we found out that Prabhupada was in Paris. So I went out on the morning walk there also with Srila Prabhupada, walking around the big park in the center of town where the Louvre Museum is. Anyone been there? No. Anyway, just memories of morning walks with Srila Prabhupada. One morning walk on the not Santa Monica Freeway, on the walkway overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
Pacific Coast Highway. Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah, Pacific Coast Highway, but up the ramp
Santa Monica
towards
Boulevard.
Santa Monica, there's a walkway, and we were walking. And I said to Srila Prabhupada, as I'm an outspoken sort, even though I was only a temple commander instead, I said to him, Srila Prabhupada, in the West, people are not that familiar with Shankara philosophy. He's not a famous name in the West, so why do you spend so much time in your books in counteracting the philosophy of Shankara? And he immediately responds like he didn't even have to think about it. You know, he said, it's like this. Points up to the sky. He says, have you ever seen a person who could make something like a sky?
Mm-hmm.
So they think there cannot be a God person. Based on their own material experience, they bring God down to their understanding from the material world. Right? Of course, we'd all say, no, I've never seen a person that could create a sky. So therefore, how do you draw the conclusion there cannot be a God? The Vedas describe that God is omnipotent. Bible, all scriptures describe that God is full of potencies. He can do anything. So that was Srila Prabhupada's immediate response, that if you don't have Vedic philosophy, you're simply on the platform of mental concoction. Your mind is, what about this? Who said that? Well, why in Krishna consciousness do we chant 16 rounds? I can only do one. Or, you get mental on the mental platform. Our mind is a material thing. Kammano buddhirevacha. The body, the mind, and the intelligence are also material energies, inferior shaktis. So we can't approach the unlimited, great, inconceivable, full of potencies God through our mental speculation. What's our procedure? How do we approach God?
Love and devotion. Through devotion, love,
Good. And through
service.
spiritual master. That's a powerful combination there, the spiritual master and love and devotion.
Mm.
You won't fail to go back to Godhead if you have both of those things. So do study the teachings of Lord Chaitanya who appeared on this special day and see how intent he is on stepping over this Mayavad kind of concoction. Even Lord Shiva himself, who incarnated as Shankaracharya, says that he made the whole thing up for the particular Kali Yuga, so that people would get more attached to sex life and generate more population. So you can read that in Prabhupada's books also. That's not something that we could imagine, that there is a three-eyed Lord with a blue body and he's making plans on how he can send the confused souls of Kali Yuga downward through their own mental concoction. But that was his job, right? He's in charge of the mode of ignorance and of covering us with it. So let's follow Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya and get out of that infection of Mayavad philosophy after first stepping over our own addiction to sense gratification of the body and of thinking ourselves to be the creator and the enjoyer. Prabhupada describes that in Bhagavad Gita, that the false ego, which entangles us in this false world, is the thought of I'm the creator, I'm the enjoyer. It has to be changed to Krishna is the creator and God, Krishna is the enjoyer.
Krishna gives the soliloquy of the demon in the 16th chapter. Ishvaraham Hambogi Siddhoham Bhagavan Sukhi. That's you're quoting Krishna. I'm the controller. I'm the enjoyer. I'm perfect, powerful, happy.
Yeah.
That's the mentality.
Nice quote, Ishwaraham Aham Bogi. One time I was in the garden in LA with Srila Prabhupada. He would go down at 6 o'clock at night before the sunset, and he would talk, and then he would say, you all discuss amongst yourselves, after he made a point. And then, of course, I stuck my hand up and I said, well, it says in the 5th chapter, this, and Prabhupada interrupted me. And he said, yes, this. And later on, I found out I was quoting the wrong chapter from Bhagavad Gita. Right in front of Srila Prabhupada, showing my foolishness. Anyway. I've talked enough. You please take over.
Nalinikanta Prabhu shared a time when he asked Srila Prabhupada a question on a walk, and I'm going back into the early 90s. I'm reading through all of Prabhupada's conversations, 37 volumes of conversations with Prabhupada, and there are many, many places, well, particularly in Los Angeles, where Nalinikanta is there, and Nalinikanta is enthusiastically asking these questions, and it prompts and catalyzes Prabhupada to go on deep explanations and explorations. So even before we knew each other, I was appreciating whoever this Nalinikanta is. He's really drawing amazing philosophical points out of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
When that one devotee said, what are you doing here to me on the walk? After the walk, I went to the GBC of LA and said, no, you should come. You get Prabhupada talking. And then that's what we all want to hear.
Yeah. In what you're sharing, Nalinikanta, there's a pastime described by many of Prabhupada's followers, or even before they were so much identifying as Prabhupada's followers in 1966, 2nd Avenue, Prabhupada's first center in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And just related to what you're saying. And so they noticed, well, Srila Prabhupada, he was not called Srila Prabhupada at that time. They knew him as Swamiji at that time. It was a little later where he was called Prabhupada. And so they noticed that Swamiji would regularly in the classes reference Mayavad, Shariraka Bhasya, Shankaracharya, Mayavad. And so they were like, afterwards they would be at the donut shop or whatever, and saying, "Oh, Mayavad, I guess it's some obscure sect in South India, nothing to do with us." And then, as they report later, they say, then a few weeks later, we realized, oh, we're the Mayavadis. Oh, that's me. Oh, so that's so I appreciate where you went with your talk and this verse, because how's this apply to me? Like, oh, the impersonalism in my heart. I want to do I don't want the Serve Krishna project. I want the David Wolf God project. And looking at Mayavad in our hearts, so like whenever I'm reading Prabhupada's books, I'm endeavoring to see like, okay, apart from intellectual refinement and my distinctions in understanding, I see like I'm endeavoring to see where is the Sahaji in my heart? Where am I showing gross materialism, Mayavad philosophy? I'm reminded one purport in Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada he writes there's the impersonalist, and there's the personalist, and then there's the devotees. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Because we think, oh, the devotees. No, so my understanding where Srila Prabhupada's going like that is that he's saying that a genuine devotee of God, a genuine devotee of Krishna, a genuine devotee in any authorized path, whether it's through Jesus or Muhammad or Ramachandra, A genuine devotee, he's not in any camp. A genuine devotee appreciates all facets of the absolute. Vedanti Tattva Vavidas Tattva Myajgan Madhvayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shatyate. A genuine devotee appreciates the non-personal aspect, because that's a true aspect, and the personal aspect, and the Paramatma in the heart. And then so you say, oh, okay. But then at the same time, we find hundreds, thousands of statements of all these heavy statements from Srila Prabhupada regarding the Mayavad impersonalist. So Prabhupada's so much appreciating the impersonal realization of the Supreme. The problem comes. The problem comes when someone who's kind of cultivating realization of the all oneness, which is a valid realization of the absolute. Someone's cultivating a realization of that. Okay, fine. And it's actually an impressive spiritual achievement to rise above all material desires. Okay, like that. But then when they reject and neglect and they say that source and the ultimate can't have a personality, can't have form, can't play a flute, can't dance. We can dance and engage in music and communication and have personalities, but our source can't. Then for a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, it's not just a philosophical point. He takes it personally. Because like they're saying, like, your best friend doesn't exist. Your best friend has no eyes, no ears, no legs. Your best friend has no personality. So sure, Srila Prabhupada's the greatest Vedic scholar, greatest philosopher of the age. I mean, he just, before him, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And it's more than just a philosophical point. He takes it personally, right? So it's one thing if someone's like, well, I appreciate the impersonal aspect of the Supreme. Wonderful. But then when someone says, and Krishna is the personality of Godhead is illusion, then the Vaishnavacharyas, they get fiery, not just in a personal sense, because they know that that's doing so much damage to the lives of millions and billions of people, because like even you said, like in the West, you mentioned Shankaracharya is not so well known. At the same time, like the impersonal aspect of the hippie thing, which it had its merits, but the whole hippie new age thing, it's Shankaracharya. Now they might not have heard of it, but that's the line. That's where it's coming from. Also, I'm reminded in that verse, Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, text 8, Rasoham Apsukonteya, Prabhasmi Sasi So, Hare Krishna Mother Madhavi, Hare Bol, Prabhashmi Sasi Surayo, Pranavasa Ravedeshu, Sabdake Parashamanishu. Krishna says, I'm the taste of water. So Prabhupada takes the opportunity to appreciate the impersonalist realization of the Supreme, realizing the energy of God every time we see the light of the sun or the moon, every time we taste water. Okay, and then the devotee who's appreciating all aspects of God realization, the devotee appreciates the energetic in the water and the light and that fragrance of the earth, and simultaneously appreciate, just like we can appreciate nature, like you have your nature, you have your nature, you have your nature. Okay, so wherever there's nature, there's a person behind the nature. Oh, it's Rose's nature, it's Dave's nature, it's Haley's nature. So I love nature. That's a first step in God realization, to love nature. The rivers, the seas, isn't it good? Isn't it wonderful? Then it's a natural question: whose nature is it? Whose nature is it? Right. So then the devotional heart is appreciating the person whose nature it is. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
In that regard, there's a morning walk from Berkeley, 1975. Sri Prabhupada came to San Francisco Rath Yatra, and the Berkeley Temple. San Francisco Temple had moved over to Berkeley, so we were there. And after the parade, Prabhupada was sitting in his office, and there was various semi-famous yogis like Yogi Bhajan and others who were sitting at Prabhupada's feet, and he was obviously the center of attraction. And I was sitting in the room, someone asked me if I could drive an Indian man back to his place. So I got up and I drove him, and I took him just a half mile away from the temple. And when I went into the house, it was an ashram. And I heard the Maha Mantra. I went downstairs and there were 300 people chanting the Maha Mantra with a candle in the middle of the room. So the next morning on the morning walk, I told Srila Prabhupada, where I drove that Indian man last night, there were 300 people, they were all chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, oh, why they do not come to our temple? Jayatirtha spoke up and said, because when they come, we tell them they are rascals. And someone else said something else. And I said something about we're chanting in praise of Krishna with devotion. They are chanting to become Krishna. Prabhupada shook his head and then he went, no matter, at least they are chanting Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So our Hare Krishna chant is spreading also among the Mayavadi camp.
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya's Hare Krishna chant, sorry, not our. It's all the mercy of Prabhupada as a representative of Mahaprabhu, whose third purpose in appearing on this holy day was to spread the chanting of the mantra all over the universe.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Any questions, comments, realizations? Vadiraj Prabhu.
Yes, very interesting. There's various definitions of the impersonal and personal form of Krishna. And it triggered something that I read in Srila Prabhupada's books.
Yeah.
Perfectly describe the importance and minimization simultaneously
Yeah.
of the impersonal as opposed to the personality.
Both
Yes.
at the same time, simultaneously. They're both
Are
they're
important
both valid.
in their own
Both
way.
valid, yeah.
He said, and I found this very illuminating to me. He says, Prabhupada said, Krishna's impersonal form is a negation of his materiality, not a denial of his transcendental personality. Because in the Vedanta,
Could you say that again?
it's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna's impersonal form
Okay.
is a negation of his materiality,
Mm-hmm.
not a denial of his transcendental personality.
Beautiful.
So if you're going to say Krishna,
Yeah.
The greatness of Krishna.
Yeah.
If you say the greatness.
Yeah.
Only,
Right.
without landing on the origin and the representation of that greatness, Krishna is just impersonal.
Yeah.
And also, so the impersonal Brahmajyoti is in the spiritual world.
Yes. Yes.
And
it is.
it's transcendental to matter.
Yeah.
So in that sense, Mayavadis can be in that incomplete transcendental place.
Yeah.
But in order to realize the personality, they'll have to come and start with devotional service.
Yeah. Thanks for that sharing, and thanks for that amazing quote from Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Sure.
If the Hare Krishna mantra dissolves the subtle body, dissolves the subtle body,
Dissolves the material body,
the subtle body.
the subtle body.
I read that. So we're speaking about the material soul.
Yeah.
The
Right.
fine, but the mind, to say, is material.
Yeah.
But then, man manab in the spiritual world or in the spiritual atmosphere,
Yeah.
we have a spiritual mind,
The
right?
spiritual mind,
Okay.
yeah. Their spiritual mind.
So it dissolved the subtle material mind.
The material mind, yeah. I'm reminded of Srila Prabhupada's analogy at the beginning of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Right? Krishna gives the banyan tree metaphor. He talks about a tree with its branches down and its roots up. So where do we find such a thing? Branches down, roots up. Oh yeah, okay, so it's explained. Prabhupada explains, if we're looking on the other side of a lake or a river and there's a big tree on the other side, then the reflected tree has its branches down and roots up. Brilliant analogy beyond what humans could create. And so this is, yes, it's such an analogy. And then, okay, so it's quite extensive. We won't go into it. Not that we understand all the nuances, but essentially, if Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says, like, so the Mayavadi impersonalists, they get they get that the illusory tree is illusory. Like we can try to get the mango fruit or the fig, but like it's just there's no substance. And then the whole material world is an illusion. We can find that in so many writings, including different rock and roll lyricists. It's all a grand illusion and this and that. And that's true. And Prabhupada's acknowledging that, recognizing it. And then Prabhupada gives an analogy from geometry. He says, but a circle has 360 degrees. The reflection is only 180 degrees. He says, and so the one class of philosophers, they get that, okay, the 180 degrees is illusion. But there's another 180 degrees, and that's the real banyan tree. That's the substantial banyan tree. There's real personality and real color and real form and real activities and real pastimes and real friendship and real romance that has substance. And so like, yeah, and Prabhupada emphasizes so much, it's our nature to desire, right? It's our nature to desire. And so, because some philosophies, the ideas, just the problems come from desires. So just stop desire. Just stop desiring, and then we can go into, okay, I'm going to really desire to stop desiring, to stop trying. Okay, so to stop desiring, it's like it's a great idea. The only problem is it's completely impossible. But other than that, it's fine. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is such a revolution. Not stop desiring and not indulge in material desire. Rather, transform the quality of our desire from the reflected tree to the real thing, to the real thing. And this bhakti that's the process to do that. Prabhupada gives a similar analogy of like an animal, could be a human animal, but say an animal in the desert, and say, there's an oasis with water just 50 yards there. It runs. It's just a mirage. 100 yards that way, there's the water. It's just a mirage. And eventually the animal gets exhausted and dies because there's no water. But that's not true. There is water. There's just not water in the desert. And so material consciousness is like trying to look for a few drops of water in the desert. But there is water. There is a real banyan tree. There is real relationships that truly fulfill the soul. The Greek philosopher Epictetus has said, the essence of all philosophy is to live one's life such that one's happiness depends as little as possible on external things. And so this bhakti is the way to do it. Otherwise we can try to be detached from external things, but we're going to desire, we're going to want to dance and sing and eat, and we're going to want to communicate, we're going to want to produce things and relate, and then we get entangled again. Unless we've learned the art and science how to direct the propensity for desire to the real banyan tree, and that's that bhakti process. I'm reminded that there's the purport to Srila Prabhupada's chapter 4, text 10, Bhagavad Gita, and he gives brilliant the psychology of Mayavad impersonalism. And Nalinikanta, you alluded to it already. But Prabhupada describes that one has an experience of like relationships in this world, and experience frustration or exasperation. If anyone's ever experienced frustration in relationships in this world, raise your hand. Okay, oh my God, I can't believe it. Shocking. So we could have all 8.2 billion people on the planet. Everyone would raise their hand. Oh yeah, I've experienced that. Right. So then Prabhupada says, so when the idea comes that, okay, then in spiritual life, then there's more relationship. Oh no. My God. That would be like a nightmare. Oh no. Right. So then the other so good, but I want to detach from the misery of the shadow world. Oh, but I don't want more relationships that will be attracted to an impersonal path, which ultimately won't be satisfying, because our nature is to relate and to have bliss in relationship. And so, so then bhakti, whether it's in a true bhakti Christian tradition, there are bhakti Buddhist traditions. Most Buddhist traditions are known for Mayavad, but I've definitely detected Mayavad in Buddhist traditions, or in the Krishna consciousness edition. Then we get, oh, okay, so here's the real banyan tree. Here's relationships that are truly satisfying, putting glorification of Krishna in the center. Hare Krishna.
I give an aside, which is besides the topic, but I remember that when I took to that wandering path with the fringe jacket and the guitar and hit the road and hitchhike and drop out, you know, shortly after that, Ratna took me in to her place in southern New Jersey. And I remember as soon as that happened, I started looking into spiritual life. And then it's been, 55 years now. And on this special day of Gaura Purnima 51 years ago, we were married. So I have a lot of thank yous to give to her for her. As my astrologer told me, everything I have is because of her.
Your Varna Pradarshika.
Not to minimize the glories of Lord Chaitanya, but
Thanks for the very relevant aside. Such a 51 years serving Prabhupada's mission, Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan mission together, that is worthy of honor and celebration. Hare Krishna.
well, it's led us to here, and you all, which we're grateful for.
Any other comments or questions at this time?
You were saying about the illusion of water in the desert. That in the distance one seems to see some water.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's the material world.
But in a sense, it is real because you have to have the premise of
Yeah.
water to be able
Great.
to think.
Great point.
that's
Great
water.
point.
So the material world
Yeah.
is real, but it's an illusory reality.
Yeah. The way we this body is real. This body is real. Now, if I think I am this body,
That's,
then that's illusion.
yes.
So it's material energy that's designed to move conditioned souls to forgetfulness of our true identity and forgetfulness of who we are as servants of God. But it's real, and that's a great point. I'm chasing water. Even to have a
There's
conception
a
of water.
premise.
Yeah, to even have a, I mean, I must have had some experience of real water
Exactly.
somewhere. Even this idea, even we talk about there's temporary and then there's eternity. Well, where do we have any experience of anything eternal? We don't. In this world, whether it's the Roman Empire or any body or any, we have no experience of eternity, but we're talking about eternity. I mean, somewhere in there, somewhere
It
deep,
begins in the spiritual world.
yeah, we must have some experience of it because there's a real banyan tree.
It's there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question about Shiva and Sankacharya. How come Shiva came here with the purpose and intention of getting people to populate more?
Well,
Krishna ordered him to.
Yeah, and how come? You know?
He's in charge of the
Can
world
you
of
answer that
ignorance.
question?
Uh,
Why did God do that?
So your question was why did God order Lord Shiva to incarnate as Shankaracharya?
To then influence people to.
To preach influence people towards ignorance.
Right, I think based on what I've read, there are a few reasons. And I know, yeah, one of them is was to, yeah, like, I guess mislead, I don't know.
To bewilder the atheists.
Yeah, bewilder the atheists, that was one of them. Just kind of like Lord Buddha, they said, I mean, he incarnated to stop the killing of animals, basically, because they were doing it in the name of the Vedas. So Buddha wanted to say, okay, well, let's not do this in the name of the Vedas, let's just deny the Vedas altogether. And so kind of like an indirect reason, but it served the purpose in the end. And yeah, I guess that's
And my understanding, my understanding is like, yeah, for this Kali Yuga, yeah, it's kind of like to fill these prison cells with persons who are spirituals who are influenced by ignorance. And so like if human praja, if human children are born out of, let's say, just unregulated lust, which will be there when there's not the higher taste of bhakti, then we'll tend to get spirit souls who are Varna Sankara, and it's kind of like it's meeting the spirit souls where they're at in their karma, to be born in a family that's not adhering to principles of sattva or transcendence, and that's what this Kali Yuga is made for, and like souls in human bodies who are dedicated to rajas and tamas, and so that's my understanding.
That's interesting that you use the word Varna Shankara.
Yeah,
Sankara.
yeah.
no pun intended.
That is his, his energy, his ignorance.
Also, Lord Shiva has two identities. One is to bewilder and create the atmosphere of ignorance, to bewilder the atheist who wants to enter the kingdom of God without permission, trespassing illegally. And the other one is that he's the greatest devotee of Krishna.
Yeah.
So we are to follow his identity as a devotee, as opposed to his bewildering energy through Shankara to bewilder the atheist class.
I have another morning walk story in that regard. Okay. In Vrindavan one morning, there were about 12 of us walking with Prabhupada on the path down towards Loy Bazaar. After 10 minutes or so, an Indian man came up to us and went up to Prabhupada and said, "Swamiji, would you please come to my house and see my temple?" And Srila Prabhupada looked at us. What should we do? Nobody said anything. He said, "Yes, let's go." So we walked there, and he had a big stage in the backyard of his house, and the curtain was drawn. So he invited us to come stand back there, and he pulled open the curtain. Gigantic 8-faced 8-armed form of Mother Durga. Prabhupada pays his full Dandavata obeisances. Quotes from the Brahma Samhita.
Sadhana Shakti
Chaiva Yasha Bhuvanani Vipati Durga. Ichan Rupam Api Chacheshtate Sa Govindamadi Bhusam Amam Vachanti. And he turns around to us, and the sun had just come over the mandir in Vrindavan. Morning sunlight, Prabhupada says with tears flowing down his face, she is a great devotee of Lord Krishna.
Wow.
She's the wife of Lord Shiva. So that confirms your point that that's the real side of Lord Shiva. He and Durga Mata are just, they're the topmost of the devotees.
How do we reconcile? We make some not very positive, I wouldn't say criticism, but observation about the demigods. Don't follow the demigod worship for less intelligent. Okay, so how do I reconcile?
Prabhupada says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Vaishnavas can also worship all these demigods, but only on the principles of Brahma Samhita, which is like the verse we just chanted, with devotion, because they are connected to Lord Krishna, Govinda Mari Portion. He created them to nourish the devotees and to punish the non-devotees.
Yeah, there are similar verses like about in the Brahma Samhita about Ganesh and about Brahma and about Indra and like that. And so for the demigods, we get into these kind of very colorful pastimes with the demigods sometimes, as we know. So the way I see it is kind of like, we can see like there are two capacities. Sometimes we see the demigods as demigods in the demigod capacity, kind of like Arjuna in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He's like playing a conditioned soul and like that. So there's demigods in the demigod capacity, like Brahma stealing the cowherd boys, or Indra getting into trouble with the residents of Vrindavan. There's demigods in the demigod capacity, and there's demigods in their capacity as pure devotees. And so and the demigod capacity, we don't want to criticize them. We say, oh, they're teaching us a lesson here. Like they're getting bewildered apparently. How careful I need to be.
And on that point, I was going through the Nectar of Devotion in Viru's house today, all the offenses in front of the ladies, man, there were more than 10, man, there's like 100 offenses. And it's one should not criticize the demigods in front of the deities. So it's a real thin line that we have to walk.
Disrespect is
Right.
Jews.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's what I read.
I think that Srila Prabhupada also was making a point for the Indian population, a lot, because there's a lot of demigod worship going on in India. Where people think that Shiva is the ultimate, or whatever, Ganesh, so much there's, I think Prabhupada also is trying to draw a line there. Yes, I think God should be respected, but Krishna seemed to,
Right.
just made that point.
They're great devotees of God. We should respect them, but they're not God. That's a mental concoction of the Mayavad school also.
You can worship any of the 5 pancha, what is it called?
We don't promote the demigod, but we don't disrespect the demigod.
Respect even the ants.
And that's it, because like this Vaishnavism, it's monotheistic, because into demigod, because there's a conception of things from the Vedas. It's 33 million gods. No, it's monotheistic, and in that sense, theologically, this Krishna consciousness, it's so much more akin to, say, the Middle Eastern spiritual paths, like Judaism, Christianity, Islam, compared to what's seen as like Eastern. But like in Buddhism, the basic conception is nihilism, non-theism. Hinduism, millions, so many gods like that. But Krishna consciousness, it's monotheism. One God with many names, and then so many assistants, just like a king will have so many ministers. And so once we get into worship of the demigods, it becomes a form of idol worship. And so Prabhupada's cautioning against that.
Pluribus unum,
Yeah.
among many, one.
Yeah.
So Krishna is one among many of these cabinets.
Cabinets, like that. Sri Chaitanya, yeah, go. Oh, I thought we could to bring closure to this part of our Sri Gaura Purnima festival. And then before going to Prasadam, we can go into a one more kirtan. Prabhu, would you like to lead a kirtan?
Sure.
Thank you. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Lord Chaitanya ki. Hare O. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shivaste Bhakti Vedanta Mama